I will show you the exact steps to fight against low testosterone. So I'm going to dive deep into the reasons why you have low testosterone, the things that you probably are doing in your life that are affecting your testosterone levels. I'm going to give you an understanding behind all those factors so you have a clear vision of what exactly you need to do. I'm going to dive deep to every single one of these, and I'm going to show you exactly how to attack it so you can get rid of your low testosterone. So what's going on? If you're new to the channel, my name is Alex and I help men master natural testosterone righteously. So that being said, let's get into it. So as you can see, there's 5 different points. I'm going to go over every single one of them, but I'm going to give deep context into every single one of them so you have an understanding. So when you do these things, you have a why behind why you're doing it. A lot of individuals have a bunch of knowledge, but they lack wisdom. And wisdom is applied knowledge. So, knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put it into your fruit salad. So in this video, I'm going to give you in-depth context so you have a clear image in your mind of why I do what I do when it comes to these 5 points. So number 1, you've probably heard me talk about this specific point a lot of times, the avoidance of consuming polyunsaturated fats. A lot of individuals consume polyunsaturated fats and they don't even realize it. People consume sweets, donuts, and they might feel sick afterwards, they don't feel well, and they create a pattern of thinking that it's sugar because it's sweet. But in reality, when you actually look at the ingredients, it's not because of the sugar, it's because of the polyunsaturated fats. Polyunsaturated, poly, meaning there's many bonds within that fat molecule. You have saturated fats, you have mono, there's one bond, or you have poly, which there's many bonds, and you want to avoid the polyunsaturated type of fat. So polyunsaturated type of fat is liquid in cold temperature. That's why fish like salmon would have high polyunsaturated fats, because it allows them to thrive in cold water. But then when you look at fish in the Amazon River, for example, their fat content would be more like butter. It'll be more saturated. Then going back to us, we have higher body temperatures, meaning we need to consume saturated fats. If we consume polyunsaturated fats, those fats oxidize, break, and cause oxidative stress within the body and cause a lot of different issues. Soon enough, I'll make a video talking about specifically polyunsaturated fats, going deeper into it, but now I just want to do some surface level. One of my mentors, Ray Pete, he done an experiment himself when he took a glass or a bottle and he put some sort of polyunsaturated fat like vegetable oils, and he had a tube and he connected it to the other side to a container with water. After a while, the water was going up the tube because the polyunsaturated fats were consuming the oxygen because it was oxidizing, so it was breaking down, right? Now imagine if you consume polyunsaturated fats where we have higher temperatures, there's other catalysts like heavy metals and iron from all the foods that we're consuming, how much damage it does within our body. So this is the problem behind polyunsaturated fats. The theory behind essential fatty acids is flawed. So back in the days, I can't remember, in the 90s, the Burr people, whatever his name was, he done an experiment on removing polyunsaturated fats from the diet, and what it resulted in specific symptoms, which they then concluded that if you remove polyunsaturated fats from the diet, you're going to have issues within the body. The flaw behind that theory is they done the experiment again. And the reason behind the symptoms was because when you have a higher metabolic rate, you're consuming nutrients at a super high level, so your need for nutrients is increased. So the reason behind those specific symptoms was a vitamin B6 deficiency. Next time when they done the study, they gave them the vitamin B6 and they no longer had those symptoms, concluding that polyunsaturated fats are not essential within the body. When you look at babies, when they're born, they're essential fatty deficient. When they're born, they don't have those essential fatty acids which they claim like omega-3s, polyunsaturated fats. Why is that? Because the brain is saturated. The baby has a super high metabolic rate and it's healthy. So there's a flaw behind the theory to why people need polyunsaturated fatty acids. I recommend you try it out. Stop consuming polyunsaturated fats. And especially now, when you see natural occurring polyunsaturated fats within, like CBD oil, for instance, it has natural occurring vitamin E. Because vitamin E is what protects the plant against the polyunsaturated fats. So what I recommend my clients is avoid polyunsaturated fats, replace them with saturated fats like coconut oil, and you will feel so much better. Coconut oil has naturally occurring polyunsaturated fats about 3 or 4%, but the other saturated fats protect the polyunsaturated fats from oxidizing. So let's say you're in a state of trying to lose body fat and you have a lot of polyunsaturated fats stored within the body, and when you go on a fat loss phase, you're going to be using those as energy, which is going to cause a lot of havoc within the body. So how you go about that is you consume more saturated fats like coconut oil to parachute the damage, you can say. So that's number one. Avoid polyunsaturated fats. Eat more saturated fats like coconut oil, butter, and animal fats, and you will feel so much better. 100 years ago, that's what everyone consumed. They wouldn't have all these vegetable oils that are massively produced. A lot of these vegetable oils are driven by business. But I'll make a different video talking about that sooner or later. So number 2, the metabolic rate. So metabolic rate ties into number 1. When they tested those essential fatty acids, they noticed that when they removed the polyunsaturated fats from the diet, the consumption of oxygen increased and the metabolic rate increased as well. The need for nutrients increased a lot. So how do you measure the metabolic rate? So your thyroid hormones, your T4, your T3. T3 primarily the active version of thyroid hormone, but your heart rate and your temperature. You want your heart rate to be 80 or above, 80 to 90 in around that range, because that's indicating that there is glucose supply into the brain. You will notice, you can check this for yourself, when you feel your best, your heart rate is going to be around that area. When you feel super low, it's going to be below that. And when you feel super anxious or stressed, it's going to be above that. One thing you can do is when you wake up in the morning, where is your heart rate at? When you have your breakfast, how does that heart rate change? If you wake up, your heart rate is 70, you have food, it increases. The food is increasing your metabolic rate, increasing your energy. If you wake up with a heart rate of 90 and you have a breakfast and it decreases, that means you're running on stress hormones. If you wake up and the heart rate is around 86 and you have food and it stays around 87, 88, that's a good level. And the temperature is a good indicator of the energy is being used properly, that it's going through cell respiration and you're producing heat as a byproduct of a high metabolic rate. When you have a high metabolic rate, you're going to recover quicker. You're going to feel better. You're going to have higher testosterone levels, because metabolism, meaning the speed of chemical reactions within the body. The reason why guys who take steroids, they can recover quicker, they can do more, because they have a higher metabolic rate. I personally recommend you do it naturally. For instance, if you have someone who's eating 4,000 calories per day versus someone who's eating 2,000 calories per day, the guy who's eating 4,000 calories per day, he's going to get a lot more done within the body, like recovery, energy, drive, motivation. He's going to sleep deeper. And the deeper sleep is going to protect him against the stressors from sleeping. I'm rambling, but the second thing is increasing the metabolic rate. So how do you do that? How do you increase the metabolic rate? So primarily, removing the polyunsaturated fats is going to be the most powerful thing you can do. Secondly, is keeping your blood sugar high. Not high, but good. You don't want to have it low. Because when you have low blood sugar throughout the day, what that does is you go low blood sugar, your body initiates adrenaline, squeezes the last bit of glycogen from the liver. When that's gone, that lasts a few minutes, then cortisol kicks in. And what the cortisol does is starts breaking down muscle tissue into amino acids, then through a process called gluconeogenesis, creating glucose to fuel your brain, because your brain needs glucose. There's a prime example of this when you see guys who are on the ketogenic diet. They tell you, do not eat too much protein, because if you do, your body will start producing, it's going to kick you out of the ketosis state. You see even some guys who do keto, I just like having higher protein than the recommended version. Yeah, because your body's like telling you need carbs, and your body's going to trick you into doing that elsewhere if that's consuming more protein and things like that. So metabolic rate. So keeping your blood sugar steady, you do that by eating food every few hours, especially if you're in a low metabolic rate, because this is all founded upon when you have a higher metabolic rate, you have micronutrients fixed, things like that. You have LDL cholesterol, vitamin A, and T3 thyroid hormone. You're producing pregnenolone. More pregnenolone equals more testosterone. So I'm looking at the root, which is your energy production. And this is how I'm structuring it so you have higher testosterone levels. So higher metabolic rate. You want to be eating consistently throughout the day. So when you have a lower metabolic rate, you're going to have to eat more frequently because you have impaired liver function. You can't store glycogen storage enough throughout the day. That could be rooted because you have a lot of endotoxins. And the endotoxins need to be detoxified from the body, or the polyunsaturated fats, or whatever it is. So your liver needs more energy, needs more money, to waste on getting rid of all of those things. And it all links back to as well to the endotoxins. If you have a lot of endotoxins, it's going to burden the liver. I bet if you can't eat, if you feel off, like your mood goes off, if you don't eat for a few hours, I bet you have issues with your sleep. Maybe you're waking up at night, you wake up, you're not fully rested. You wake up with like adrenaline, because it's the same thing. Your body doesn't have enough glycogen. It's initiating stress response, cortisol to start breaking down the muscle tissue to get glucose into the brain, things like that. So eating frequently throughout the day. Avoiding problematic foods, because if you're eating problematic foods, that's going to cause a stress response. If you're eating foods and you feel cold afterwards, or you just feel off, your heart rate decreases, that food causes a stress response. So paying attention to that. Primarily going things more for like fruit, orange juice, honey. Be careful with starches. Good protein from dairy, fats from coconut oil, things like that. And having a right caloric intake per day. That's biggest mistake I see a lot of guys is they have all this information, but they don't know the correct structure. You need to know exactly how much protein you need in grams. So let's say you take your weight in pounds and multiply by 0.82, that will give you how much protein around you should consume per day. Primarily your weight, your lean weight in pounds multiplied by 0.82. Because if you're 40% body fat, you don't need as much protein. Then when it comes to fat, around 1 gram per kilo, and carbohydrates fill in the rest. The way you can set up your calories is for your maintenance around, get your weight in pounds and multiply by 15. And based on that, depending on how many steps you do, if you're walking 1 kilometer, you're going to have to eat an extra amount of calories of how much you weigh per kilogram. So if you're walking an extra 10 kilometers per day and you weigh 100 kilos, that's another 1,000 calories that you add on top of that. So that's a simple calculation, and that's fundamentally super important, because if your caloric maintenance is 3,000 and you eat 2,000, 2,500, the next day you're going to feel awful because you're in a caloric deficit and you're running on stress hormones and you're tapping into that cortisol. You need to be in a state of like you're eating the right amount of food. You don't want to be over consuming either, because that's going to cause high blood sugar. It's going to make you feel off. You're going to go into body fat storage, things like that. So you need to hit it right. And when you do, you'll feel amazing. There's more to that, but that's like if you just do what I said just there, you'll get a lot of value from that. The number three is super important. If you are micronutrient deficient, you can eat all the carbs you want, but if you're deficient in B1, you're going to be producing lactic acid. Like a lot of guys fail to understand that your body needs vitamins and minerals to convert the food that you're consuming into energy. And there's different ways your body can produce energy. It could be through cell respiration, it could be through fat oxidation, beta oxidation, or through lactic acid, which is a not good way to produce energy. And most people are running on the lactic acid. If you eat something and you feel like after you've just working out, when you go to the gym, the way you feel afterwards, some people feel like that after they consume a meal, because when they're eating food, they're producing a lot of lactic acid. And lactic acid has to go through the liver to get converted into glucose. So it's a negative process. So micronutrient deficiencies, minerals, vitamins, amino acids, you need to make sure that you're consuming the right amount of those. It has been shown that micronutrient deficiencies cause issues. And do not go based on just random videos you see online, because if you're not deficient in something, but you watch the video telling you you need to eat zinc every day, and you're consuming zinc but you're okay with it, now you're overdosing, and that's going to cause a problem as well. So you need to have a understanding of what minerals, vitamins, amino acids you need to eat, because you can damage yourself and it can cause an even bigger problem. The way you can test that is doing like a hair analysis test or toenail test to analyze what you're deficient in. The number 4, excess body fat. If you have excess body fat, that's indicating to me that you're in a stress state. You have a lot of polyunsaturated fat storage. You're primarily running on stress hormones and estrogen. If you try to boost your testosterone levels, you have more aromatase enzyme activity within the body. And what that enzyme does, it converts your testosterone into estrogen. So if you start doing all these tactics to boost your testosterone, all that's going to get converted back into estrogen. You cannot allow for that to happen. The best way to lose body fat without damaging yourself is by focusing on fixing your micronutrient deficiencies, avoiding PUFAs, eating saturated fats, focusing on a higher metabolic rate, eating plenty of dairy to fuel the liver, because now all these toxins, all this junk food that you're eating for the couple of past years, you're going to start burning that as energy and you're going to feel awful. So you need to do it nice and slow, and you need to have tactics in place to parachute the damage that is going to be happening. You see a lot of guys, they lose body fat, but they gain it back up. They lose it and they gain it. Why is there guys that can maintain low body fat throughout the year and don't even think about it twice? It's natural. Oh, caloric deficit. Oh, you're just eating too much. It's not like that. There's more to it. It's like when people can't explain something when it comes to health, they just throw the genetic cards. Oh, it's genetics. Genetics is just a word that they use when they cannot explain something. But it's not genetic. It has to do within processes within your body. You need to look at the reasons why people store body fat. It could be because your liver is burned in too much. So instead of the liver taking care of it, it stores it in the body fat tissues. Could be if you're living in a cold climate. One of the functions of body fat is to keep you warm. Another of the reasons is if you have a super low metabolic rate, you're not producing heat. So one way your body is going to keep you warm is increasing the amount of body fat you have on your body to keep you warm. It's more than just calories in versus calories out. So that's number 4. And then number 5, we have endotoxins, which tie into all of these things. Endotoxins are basically, you have gram-negative bacteria within the intestine. When you eat starches, the undigested starches feed the endotoxins, which then feed the gram-negative bacteria, which sheds the endotoxins. The endotoxins then go to your liver. They can burden the liver, causing issues, blood sugar issues. It can be stored into body. Those theories of if your body can't handle the endotoxin, it can store as body fat into the body fat and take care of it later when it has enough energy to do so. Someone, George Ginkop, I think, mentioned as well, some people, the liver can't handle it and it throws it into the bloodstream, and that's what septic shock is. What else? So endotoxins you want to avoid. The one way you can battle that is consuming a raw carrot. You consume a raw carrot because it has naturally occurring antibacterial properties. So when you consume it, it binds to them and flushes them out because those fibers are undigestible to the human body. And you're flushing out the estrogens, the bile, because if your liver is healthy, it detoxifies 100% of the estrogen. One way it does that is through bile. But if you have no consistent flow of fiber, and you have a low metabolic rate, that bile sits there, it gets reabsorbed to the colon because your colon is more permeable. So having low thyroid enhances the effect of endotoxin because the endotoxin can go more higher into the stomach, the intestine. So you want to be eating food that's very super easily digestible, so you build it up. So it's all a feedback mechanism. So yeah, I made an in-depth video about endotoxin. So if you go to my channel, I've done a video in depth when it comes to endotoxin. So yeah, these are the 5 reasons you have low testosterone, and I gave you the 5 reasons to fight it back. If this is all too complicated for you, I'm going to leave a link down below. You can join my free community, in which actually today we're doing a collaboration session. No, tomorrow we're doing a collaboration session. I sit there for an hour. You get to join the Zoom call. It's free, and ask me questions. And we just talk. There's a community, people asking questions. There's a course in here. So yeah, you can send me messages, things like that. So down below, I'm going to leave a link down below to join the community. And yeah, hopefully you got some value out of this video. I know I covered a lot of things. Maybe you'll have to watch this video again to make sense within your mind. But yeah, I feel like these 5 things are very fundamentally powerful things, like the 20-80, the 20% that will give you 80% of the results. Of course, there's other things you want to do, but if you do these things, you'll get a lot of good, can't think right now, a lot of results from putting in work when it comes to these 5 things. So yeah, that being said, God bless. See you later.